Hi, and welcome to the show. Subscribe at kevinmd.com/podcast. Get CME for this episode by clicking on the CME link in the show notes. Today, we welcome Angela Walker and Sylvia Morris. Angela is an obstetrician-gynecologist. Sylvia is an internal medicine physician, and they are co-authors of the book, The Game Plan, A Woman's Guide to Becoming a Doctor and Living a Life in Medicine. Angela and Sylvia, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for
Thank you for
having us.
having us.
So I'm going to ask each of you just to briefly share your story and journey, and then we'll talk about your book. Angela, why don't we go first?
Okay. My name is Dr. Angela Walker. I'm an OBGYN by training. I went to Georgetown for medical school, and that's where I met all of the co-authors of the book, except for one of the authors. We went to undergraduate together at Texas A&M, trained in OBGYN residency at UT Houston, and then practiced in private practice in Houston, then Dallas, and ultimately in Atlanta area. I'm a wife. I got married right before medical school, and I have 2 adult daughters.
All right, Sylvia, just briefly share your story and journey.
Yes, good morning. I'm originally from Los Angeles, and I went to Berkeley undergrad. I met Angela and my co-authors at Georgetown and trained at the University of Washington in Seattle. I've spent a lot of time going in and out of clinical practice. So I've been a hospitalist in several iterations, as well as currently, but also have done some consulting and very interested in using media to improve public health. So thank you very much for having us today.
All right. And both of you are among 5 co-authors of the book. The book is called The Game Plan, A Woman's Guide to Becoming a Doctor and Living a Life in Medicine. So Angela, tell us, how did this book come together?
Yeah, so the 5 of us, as we mentioned, met in medical school, and thereafter, once we got out of residency and practicing, started traveling together. And so we're actually going on our 20th or 20 plus annual girls trip next week in Miami to celebrate our friendship and the book. But we met in medical school, formed a sisterhood and friendship. But about 10 years ago, at one of our trips, sitting around good food and glass of wine, started talking about all the things we wish we had known prior to our journey, things that we wish maybe someone had told us or that we had sought out that would have made our journey maybe a little bit easier, and wanted to put a book or a plan together to offer other women, and it doesn't necessarily have to be women, but because we are women, a guide to living a life in medicine, sharing things that people don't necessarily talk about or think to ask.
And Angela, give us a little sample. What are some of the key things that you wish you knew before, earlier on in your journey, that you know now?
I think one of the biggest thing that comes up in the book is the importance of seeking out mentors and asking. In the book, we offer questions that you would want to ask. We get a lot from our amazing instructors in medical school and residency, but it's a lot about the practice of medicine, but not necessarily living a life in medicine and what happens outside of medicine. And some of the things that you learn may actually help to navigate your path towards choosing a specialty. Also, I think it's important to know that there are alternatives. We've, a couple of us have done things outside of our traditional roles of practicing in clinical medicine, and knowing that those things are out there. So you may have a plan B and a plan C. I think that those are the things that come to mind.
All right. And Sylvia, tell us some of your contributions and input that you want readers to come away with from reading the book.
Yeah, I want people to be kind to themselves. There's a lot of pressure to be not perfect, but really to have it all together. And our 5 stories, you really see a variety of different ways of how people came to medicine. One of our co-authors didn't think about applying to medical school until she was in college, or actually after college. I happen to be the kid who always said, "Oh, I want to be a doctor," from kindergarten. So there are a variety of stories and paths to success. And it's really important for you to hone in on what you're good at and what your particular path is, and to hopefully not get too caught up in what Bill and John and Susie are doing.
So, Sylvia, Angela mentioned that there are some stories where physicians have activities, interests outside of clinical medicine. And Sylvia, as you were telling your story, you mentioned you did some consulting work and things outside of clinical medicine as well. So tell us more about that.
Yes, my second job, I had a patient who, let's just say, really challenged my ability to be compassionate. He would go home and smoke on his front steps and turn off his oxygen, thank God, because that, of course, would be a whole nother specialty. But nonetheless, and he would get readmitted to me. And I had to really dig deep to figure out, was it the patient that was bothering me? Because the patient was doing what they were doing was best for them. Or was I unhappy or disappointed or dismayed with medicine sort of as a career? And I think the term we would use now is burnout. So I was burned out. And I started reading the New England Journal of Medicine. That was back when it was a paper. So in the back, they had all these job listings, and I applied to anything and everything that looked interesting and that I thought I would be able to be good at.
And Sylvia, now that you have a little bit of a career outside of clinical medicine or a dual career, has that helped with the burnout that you had been feeling?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Because it gives us, I'm not going to use the word balance. I think that I'm not sure we can actually get balance. And in our chapter on being a superwoman, we kind of touch on that. But the harmony that I have found in my life, currently my job, I do a little bit of marketing, I do a little bit of direct clinical practice, and then I have an administrative role. And I need the variety. And that has been helpful for me. It's helpful for my family and friends, but also it's helpful for my patients because when I'm in the room with them, I'm really honed in on what's important and how to be the best physician.
Angela, Sylvia mentioned the term superwoman, and I think that I've heard this term mentioned multiple times as it relates to women in medicine. Tell us some of the challenges today about practicing medicine as a woman.
Oh, I think the challenges are not necessarily new. It's, some of the societal norms that we have from, we talk about it as growing up as little girls of what we had ideas, some of us, as, being mothers and taking care of the home and taking care of, things outside of home, trying to participate in all of your, if you have children, kids' activities, and just the expectations that not only that society still has on you, but that you may have of yourself. And so we try to tackle some of those things. And I think the bottom line that was written is that we may be able to have it all, but just not all at the same time. And I think trying to dismantle that notion of trying to attain superwoman is not really good for your overall well-being. But trying to be the best at what you do at work and at home, but realize that sometimes that you may be doing the best at work and not necessarily best at home, and vice versa, and that is okay. So what Sylvia said is just giving yourself grace in this moment in time, and I think we're doing a better job at it. I just don't think we're there yet.
I think the other part, so I'm not married and I don't have children, but I'm an only child. So when my father was sick during the beginning part of COVID, I was flying back and forth to Los Angeles. I currently live in Atlanta, seeing about my father. So there are other caregiving roles that women traditionally have, rightly or not so. And we continue to do those roles as well as be physicians and what I like to call a CEO of our households as well.
Angela, you mentioned that you have two grown children and you're an obstetrician-gynecologist, of course, which is perceived as a very demanding specialty, being on call all hours of the night. Tell us some specific things that you did to manage that proverbial work-life balance as you were going through your medicine journey.
Yeah. Oh, wow. So probably about halfway through, my career, I realized that as a female OBGYN, the kind of the norms had changed by the time I finished residency, and women as we know now, are oftentimes seeking a female OBGYN. So when you're in a practice, a group practice, and you may be, one of a few females, oftentimes you would be someone that would get more of the patients because they're seeking a female to deliver with. So needless to say, in the practice that I was in, I was overwhelmed and realized when I got home at night, I was taking it out on my family. And I just had to have a heart-to-heart with myself and realize that I cannot keep up this pace and do my self-service and my family service. So I cut back. I said, this is the limit of what I can do as far as deliveries per month. And that meant I take a hit in my salary because it was kind of an eat what you kill type system. And so you generate what you make what you generate. And so I learned that it was so worth the cut back in salary because my quality of life improved and what I could give to my family improved. And then ultimately, more recently, I got to the point where I realized that no matter what I was doing, again, taking on administrative roles, as Sylvia mentioned, and keeping up with the pace and call and all of those things, I wasn't serving myself well. Mm-hmm. And that was kind of the second, time in life where I had to take inventory and see how was I really helping myself with my mental wellness, physical wellness, all of those things. And actually took a step back from clinical medicine. And I'm currently working as a reviewing medical director. And then to get my fulfillment for women's healthcare, speaking and coaching. So those things are, part of the growth. Things that we share in the book is that I would have never thought of those things outside of medical school or residency.
Sylvia, there's been an evolution in terms of that intersection between work-life balance and women in medicine. And we've come some ways, but we're certainly not where we want to be yet. Talk to us about some of the remaining challenges that you see that we need to work on.
Yeah, that's a great question. When we've already kind of touched upon the roles within the household that are really required for women and how you figure out how to manage your household. I happen to have enough means to have a housekeeper as an example. They're just little tips and tricks that we just kind of have to figure out how we're going to make our lives easier. And then certainly, if we look at academics, we know that there are not as many women in leadership roles in academics. And we certainly have some work to do as medicine to try and improve that, because we certainly want to make sure that all voices are highlighted so that we can have the richness of everyone's experience brought fully to the table.
I'm going to go back to the initial theme that I had and that we've all talked about and that we all really, adamantly agreed upon is the importance of mentors. At my residency program, I had Dr. Michelle Curtis, who was an author of one of the office gynecology books that we used, and Dr. Ollier, who was actually president of ACOG. And those women, just by being examples in their leadership roles, really made a difference for me. And I know, the other female residents that I had, and that they were living the life of being leaders in medicine, but also were human and kind enough and accessible enough to share their lives as caregivers. They both happen to be, mothers. And, those sorts of positions are really important. So, opening up the leadership positions to women and women actually seeking them. And I think, changing our mindset and how we think about how we're supposed to live our lives in medicine will make a big difference for us in promoting more women in roles of leadership.
Now, both of you have strongly articulated how important those mentors are. So, Sylvia, how does one go about finding a mentor for them?
They actually are all around you. It's really the person that you get along with, whether it's on your rotation, whether it is your chemistry, your Chem 1A class, you happen to really like your professor or your TA. It might be in a pre-professional organization. There's something called the Student National Medical Association, where I participated as a med student and really found other like-minded individuals. When I was in public health school, I had a fabulous environmental health instructor, and he made me think differently about the world. So at various points in my career, I really have kind of leaned into people who may have not been as traditional. They were not all physicians. And I think being open to someone that has other skill sets that are definitely present in medicine, knowing how to navigate sort of the politics of medicine is really important. I've worked on the Hill and met a fantastic woman named Constance Miller, and she was a strategist, lobbyist person. And I learned so much from her on how to manage people and then also how to manage myself. So really, it's not about, oh, I need to sign up on this website, on LinkedIn, and find this person. It's about really mining your current network and just gravitating to where it's easy and to those people who also are interested in you being successful.
We're talking to Angela Walker and Sylvia Morris. Angela is an obstetrician-gynecologist. Sylvia is an internal medicine physician. They are among the 5 co-authors of the book, The Game Plan, A Woman's Guide to Becoming a Doctor and Living a Life in Medicine. Now I'm going to end by asking you both the same question, which are take-home messages that you want readers to come away with after reading your book. Angela, why don't you go first?
Okay, well, I probably beating a dead horse here, but I think it's really important to find a mentor in whatever your journey you think it's going to be. And I will add to what Sylvia, Dr. Morris was mentioning is seeking people that are readily accessible. But if you don't find somebody readily accessible, if you are in school or working, you can ask. And particularly, you can ask an advisor, hey, I am interested in OB, I'm interested in pediatrics. Can you please link me up, find someone to mentor me? So it's really being proactive in that stage. I think number 2 is leaving space for your friends. So that is, one of the things that comes out in our book. It's been so important during our journey of just, living, a life of wellness and joy is treasuring and protecting our friendship. But doing so also by taking care of your family and spending time with them, which I think, we sometimes lose sight of in medical school and residency because we're so focused on our mission that we sometimes have left people by the wayside, and it's important to nurture those relationships. And lastly, as women, I just think I'll echo what Dr. Morris said from the beginning, is giving ourselves grace. In this journey, it's not easy, but it can be filled with love, fulfillment, joy, but you have to give yourself grace and learn from those mistakes and identify the areas that are no longer serving you and make those pivotal changes.
And Sylvia, tell us some of your take-home messages you want readers to come away with after reading your book.
Yeah, 2 things. One, listen to your gut. Dr. Walker was just talking about kind of tapping into knowing what works for you and what doesn't work for you. I think oftentimes we ignore our gut because this is the way that it's supposed to be. This is the plan, and we get married to a particular plan, and not everything works for everyone. So I never want people to kind of ignore that little small voice that is kind of nagging at them. And then the second thing is self-care. I know we talk about it a lot now, but it still remains true. So whether it is going to the gym during medical school, we went to the gym at 11 o'clock at night. We'd get on the elliptical. If we had time, we would do, an aerobics class. And now, of course, it would be Pilates or yoga. Sometimes people walk. I know that Dr. Walker is a runner, not my favorite thing to do. If you can get to the pool, if it's just a few moments in the morning with the Calm app, there are a lot of different ways that you can reconnect with yourself and really sort of settle your nervous system.
The book is called The Game Plan, A Woman's Guide to Becoming a Doctor and Living a Life in Medicine. Angela and Sylvia, thank you so much for sharing your stories, time, and insight.
Thank you for all that you do. We appreciate the platform.
Thank you very much. This was fantastic.